I've been so hungry for the word. It's like eating Sour Patch Kids and wanting to eat lettuce like a rabbit. That's how it's been. Been deleted and I can't speak either. Been deleting Instagram, been deleting social media, and focusing on God and I's relationship wholeheartedly, and just wanting to be at his feet continuously all day every day, and wanting that desire, wanting that passion, just to have that intimate connection, that intimate relationship with him. And coming out of a season of just hardship and sadness, mentally and supernaturally, it's refreshing and refilling to want to be in the presence of God, because he's just a majesty. I wouldn't even say majestic, because that's like magic. But this all being created the heavens and the earth. And in Job, there's a passage of where God just tells Job about, you want to have the authority to rule all of this that I've created? Go ahead, bud. But just God being a good God, and God being such a knowing father, a good father, and being with you every step of the way. And I could go on, but wanting that all, wanting that zeal, and also reading Malachi with the church and just experiencing Malachi in a New Testament perspective. It's so refreshing and so rejuvenating in a supernatural, hungerful way. And I'm so appreciative of it. But I've just built a hunger for the word, and I encourage all of y'all to just experience and have a hunger for that if we are in a secular perspective, or if we have some type of secularism in our life, have scripture, have something that's fruit giving and life giving to counteract that tenfold. Like social media, like we're on it for hours and hours, but we only read a verse a day. And before I go on a tangent, fun fact is that there's 31,102 verses in the Bible, and a verse a day could never fuel our hunger enough to read that a verse a day, 365, and all those verses divided by that's 85 years of our life. That's so many years just trying to finish the Bible just once. You can never memorize the Bible with that. And just checking off a box with that's not hunger, that's not fueling. And this passage I'm gonna share, it's so encouraging, and it's a reminder of what and why we do what we do as believers, as faith people. It's to be in the presence of God and to have an awe and zeal for him. I had it, but then I flipped to the other verse, so we're gonna flip to it. But it's 2 Corinthians 3 verse 5, and it says this, 2 Corinthians 3:5, not that we are sufficient in ourselves to claim anything as coming from us, but our sufficiency is from God. Our sufficiency is from God. It's not from man. It's not from the secular pleasures. It's not from the worldly pleasures. It's not from church itself. It's from God. Sufficiency is from God. He gives us that sufficiency, that being content with him and he being enough, that being at the presence of God and being at his feet is enough. And a verse and passage I always go to is Matthew 6, the last part, 24 through 34. I believe it's 25 actually through 34. Yeah. But so the first part of Matthew 6, it talks about the Lord's Prayer and all of those good things. And then Jesus talks about not being anxious. And for the longest time I was like, yeah, don't be anxious. Just don't be anxious. That's totally normal. That's totally fine. I can totally do that. But then it's like, I'm anxious and reading my Bible is not helping, because you're trying to check off the box with it. God never meant his word to be a check in the box kind of thing. It's called the bread of life for a reason. We don't eat when we're full and wonder why we're not hungry. It's I need this, and I need to cut whatever it is in my life that's not keeping me focused on God, that distraction. I need to cut it out so I can focus on this, because direction needs to outweigh the distraction, and scripture needs to outweigh whatever it is that we're holding above it. Because without this truth, what are we? Without God, who are we? But anyways, Sufficient is God. The sufficiency is from God. And Matthew 6, the last part, do not be anxious. I'm not going to read all of it. But verse 34 says, therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own troubles. Sufficient for the day. I'm going to say that sufficiency is from God. That being content, that gratefulness, that gratitude, that generosity is enough for me. Being in the presence of God and the fruits of the spirits and the harvest that I reap and all of that goodness, that life-giving stuff from God, that's enough for me. That sufficient for the day is its own is enough, because the anxiety, it spirals. We get into this mindset of focusing on the anxiety, focusing on the distraction, instead of being at the presence of God, being in the presence of God. God is omnipresent. He is always with us. He's always around us. But it's the fact of, if our heart's gonna be soft enough to let him in and to continuously work in us and our teachable spirits. How teachable is our spirit? How teachable are we? And I could go on and on about all this different scripture, but just the encouragement of that anxiety, that distraction, that whatever it is, that lust, that nervousness, that depression, that suicide, that relationship, that lie, that gut feeling, that pressure, that conviction, whatever it is, well, the conviction is from God about the certain thing, but that anxiety that you're getting, that nervousness, God can outweigh that. God is better and bigger than that. And just cutting out those distractions, focusing on the direction of looking at him through the word and his lenses and his goodness, and focusing on that you and him, not even proper English, but we're on a roll, so we're gonna keep on going, but focusing on him, sitting at his feet and just wanting to be a Mary Magdalene, I believe. The wind is crazy, oh my gosh. Anyways, but focusing on him and what he has to say and what his hand's going to do, and just everything that he is, focusing on him, sitting at his feet and just waiting for him to say the next word, waiting for him, not waiting for the next notification, not waiting for the next big event, not waiting for the next hurricane, not waiting for the next test, not waiting for all these things, because that's anxiety working in us. But focusing on him. Sufficient for the day, sufficient is God. And understanding that instead of the twirly spiral thing. I just said it, okay. Anyways, but not focusing on that, but focusing on God, focusing on his goodness. That's enough. And that's what this scripture means, is not focusing on all this anxiety, but focusing on God, that God is sufficient.